And this time, Aivis will dig into the time series visual. We know that this is what you have been working for throughout the weekend. So time series visual makes time-based data exploration intuitive and easy down to each millisecond. So see how to set it up, customize, apply, and again, this is live session. So ask questions to Aivis about playing around with the time series visual at ZoomCharts. Ivy, the floor is yours again.
Yep, just a second. So going back to this one. All right, I think we can share live the content then.
Yes, sending it live.
Perfect. So same principle applies as any other sessions regarding the drill down visuals. So we're going to go through the visual, some of the main formatting options, what it's meant for, what are maybe some certain particular use cases or something that you'd need to know before using it. And yeah, we just go through it. So what I'm going to do here is the same thing as always, add in an instance of the time series visual and focus on the fields list right here. So first thing you notice, we have two sorts of fields there. We have the date field and then we have the series field. As far as the series go, for those of you who have seen it already previously, we are familiar with this. It's the same approach as for the combo visual. So these are the numerical series that you want to plot on top of the visual. And the other field we have there is a date field. Now, the date field is something really easy and simple to use. It just accepts regular dates. One thing I do recommend you to look into is when you're adding dates as a field right here, make sure that you are not using the date hierarchy, but you are using just a regular date field. Because once you're going to be using a hierarchy, you can see there's going to be an error message like this, which showcases that you need to use the correct date format. So once we change it to date, next message we see is we need a series. We're going to comply to that. We can add a profit line. There you go. And the secondary series is going to be my total sales. So this is kind of the default visual that you get with it. With each of the series, you get a column. And afterwards, each of the columns can be, again, customized independently. So for example, if I go now here, I know my first column was the profit one. And for the profit, I can see that it's still relatively smaller than the actual total sales. So what I could do is, for example, change it to be a line. We can see it in the background, so it's not really visible. I can change the display orders for it, bring it on the forward. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to choose value axis and put it on secondary and scroll up in the formatting tab and enable the secondary y-axis. So here you can see on how you can easily create, for example, a time series visual with dual axis. One particular thing that I do recommend users to do when you're using multiple axes for easier kind of visual readability and usage is to customize the axis to be represented in a similar color to how the actual series is. So for example, right here, we can see both of them are in a black color, but the actual profit line is kind of like a turquoise green, something like that. So what I'm going to do here is choose the font color to be in the exact same color. And just with these kind of small iterations, it's a lot easier for the user to actually understand so which values are for which chart type. If you want to go a step further, you can scroll down a little bit more. Here's the title text. I can say that this is the profit. I'm just writing now, for example, profit line. Almost close enough. So adjusting the font color for that as well. And I can add a title for the primary y-axis as well. So this is my total sales. So small things like this can really make a lot of difference when you're creating the reports. It's a lot easier for the users to read it, to understand which lines, which values are representing what kind of series, and these kind of things. Now, the other thing is what we can do through is, again, through the stacking options, because this is something specific for combo time series combo bar visuals. For example, now we're going to leave both of these, actually going to disable the secondary axis. We're going to revert back. And yeah, one quick tip I also have is if you play around with one of the series and you customize the absolute of it, and then you just want to go back to the default state, you don't have to go through every single option you have there. All you need to do is scroll down to the bottom right here and just click revert to default. it's a quick and easy way on how you can remove all the settings that you have applied and just go back to the default behavior. Now, in order to create the stacks, make sure that the stack number is exactly the same for all the series that you want to stack on top of each other. So for example, I'm going to stack this on stack 2. And once you have enabled the stacks, don't forget that these stacks also have multiple variations. So for example, we can create normal stacks. So this is where you just put one column on top of each other. Then we have the 100% proportional, which means that I'm utilizing 100% of the chart, and they're showcasing the relation, kind of the part of that 100%. One thing you're going to notice here, I already went through this, but again, you can see that, for example, right now I have a dollar sign right here. And that's because right now the primary y-axis is using a numerical scale. So for example, if I open up primary y-axis and I scroll lower, right here I have value type. So just don't forget to change this to be a percentage. Small things, small nuances, but it really makes a lot of difference. So back to the numeric one. Let's close this one, close this one. Actually, no, we need stack settings, yeah. And the third option is zero-based. So zero-based means that essentially both series start from the 0 line. And for example, in this case, you can see that I don't see the green line, the green column, which is in the background, right? And to kind of avoid it, you have two options here. One of them is if I open up series 1, which is the green column for me, and increase the display order, you can see I can bring it forward now. Or another option would be, for example, I can leave it in the background like this, but what I can do is go for series 2. And right here we have fill color opacity. And I can lower the opacity to something like, say, for example, 50. And I can see through the column and I can see the profit column. So that's one of them. Or third option would be something really, for example, a little bit more unorthodox, let's say like that, is if you bring it forward, so it's right here, but for the user to kind of visually understand that they both starting from 0 value, you can actually just decrease the width % of the column. So for example, something quickly as this, right? So it allows the user to see that both of them start from the 0 value, and they see that this is part of that one that the profit line actually also covers. So yeah, that goes through some of the formatting options. Now, what I wanted to showcase more is I'm going to actually remove this one for now. I'm going to go to series 1, revert to default behavior. There we go. Or actually, we could even go for area. Yeah, let's go for area. And now about some specifics about the time series visual. And for this one, I'm also going to create a card visual, so it's easier to see the data that's going to be filtered out. So I'm going to go for total sales right here. I'm going to copy the same visual, and I'm going to apply profit for this one. Profit. There you go. So these two elements are right here. And one thing I wanted to kind of showcase to you as an option is the ability to choose what is going to be your filter trigger for the time series visual. Because the same principle applies for all of our visuals. We do have that ability to drill down, that ability to zoom into details, explore data in more depth. And for example, if I use the default one, so for example, right here, you can see only on selection, right? If I click on, let's say, this quarter right here, starting from October, you can see that I drill down on a lower basis, but none of my KPIs right here at the top actually changed. And this name kind of implies already how the filter is going to be triggered. So it's going to be only a selection. In order to create a selection on the time series, you need to hover over the x-axis right here. You can see the cursor changes its visible kind of icon for it. Once you have this selection option, just hold down your left mouse button, drag, and select the time period that you want to select. So for example, I want to select this quarter for me. And you can see this is now being passed as the filter. Now, again, if I'm going to click on the selection, go deeper, you can see that the filter is being reset again. So just make sure that you play around with these settings and see what makes sense to you as a user and for your kind of user experience that you're trying to create there. Now, if we go back to this view, so a monthly view, what we're going to do right here is change the behavior to be on any action. Just going to disable this one. There we go. So filter trigger is any action now. And now, for example, if I choose a particular month, so I don't know, let's go for February 2017. And as you can see, as soon as I clicked on it and drilled down, the filter applies and I'm only seeing the relevant KPIs for this time period. So this just allows a different interaction to filter out the data and look at certain time ranges or, specific kind of periods. Another thing that you can, of course, do is still choose a more specific time range within that selection. So when you have this any action, essentially you have the ability to use the drill down as a filter, and you can also use a selection as a filter. So you have a combination of both of these. Now, another thing that we offer you as an option with the time series is the ability to freely move around the visual. And what I mean by that is you can hold down the left mouse button and drag the mouse upwards, downwards, to the right or the left. It's really up to you. So for example, if I hold down now and start to move it upwards, you can see it zooms out to the visual and it allows me to kind of transition between different states. If I want to go deeper, I can do either a click or just dragging it down. It allows me to zoom into a certain area. Another thing that you can do is quickly transition between additional periods. So for example, actually, let's go through a different scenario. So we're going to have a monthly view right here, and I'm going to choose October and November, right? You can see I have a selection right here. And one more thing, sorry, I forgot to mention is that right now in the tooltip, and I'm actually going to showcase it. For example, right now in the tooltip, you can see that the profit is 137,000. What that tooltip actually showcases me is the already summed up value between these two periods. And if I want to choose something in addition, so for example, I had only 2 months selected, but your manager says, okay, but what about the last quarter? So all 3 months. So just hover over one of the sides of the selection right here and extend the selection. And as you can see, the tooltip adds the values also for December. So that's one of those things. But something I wanted to also showcase to you is once you have a selection kind of highlighted like this, you can click on it and it's going to drill down into a smaller view for only that time period that you selected. In this case, for example, you can see that I have a little bit of November visible as well. And that's because my lowest level, like the next level I was going to, was up to weeks. So, and as we know, weeks can be, part of the previous month, or like the week can be split between 2 months easily. To kind of avoid this, for example, if you want to quickly transition from months to days, that's also possible. In order to do that, we need to open up right here, display units, and just find the display units that we don't want to have it in the visual. So in this case, we know that weeks was the one that was kind of interfering with what I was trying to achieve there. So what I'm going to do is zoom out, go back to the monthly view right here. I'm going to choose October, November again. And now when I click on the selection, you can see that I can see on daily basis because that's the next level I have available. And I only see the data relevant to those 2 months. So that's something that you can do here. And also, like I mentioned, that case where your manager says, okay, but what about, for example, the next week of December? Sure, just hold down your mouse and just drag your mouse to the right. Just bring in more data, let them come in, kind of analyze it on the fly. That's kind of one of the greatest things about the ability to freely move around the chart. It gives you the opportunity to really explore the visual and transition between different these states. Okay, that goes for that. Now, another specific thing about the time series visual is something we partially already used, and this is this display unit setting. And in the display unit setting, what you can do is choose the hierarchy of the data that you want to have. And as you can see right here, Davis already mentioned this, is the lowest level we support right now is milliseconds. And the highest time period we support right now is actually up to a decade. So all these different time units, and if there's something really specific for your company, the greatest benefit of, for example, using a third-party visual is that we can always add them. We're not restricted to the regular hierarchy of Power BI. We can create these custom time periods because, for example, you can see here, we already kind of started to experiment with different requests. So for example, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 5 seconds, 6 hours, these kind of time periods is something that we can definitely add on top of the visual. And one important thing that you think about the time series that you can do through this setting is right here, the initial display unit. Now, the initial display unit allows you to choose the default granularity for the chart. And what I mean by it is, for example, I'm going to choose, just for example, right? I'm going to say the initial display unit is quarter. Now, if I transition between two pages, so this just allows the visual to refresh, you can see that I have this quarterly view now available. If I go back to the formatting options and say that display unit is going to be month, I can again refresh the page, and you can see this is the monthly view of the chart. So this just allows you to set in what is going to be the default view for your chart when you first open up the report. Of course, your user does have the ability to transition between different other states. So for example, right here at the top right, you have the display granularity. And if you click on it, the user has the options right here. So you can quickly say, okay, but I want to go back to yearly view. Just simply as that, here we go. Okay, area doesn't look really great in this case, but you know, it's not supposed to cover every single case, right? But if we go back to, instead of area, choose column, this makes sense again. Now, if the user wants to go to a monthly view, just with a simple click, he can transition between these two states. So one thing about these buttons right here at the top, and I can't emphasize it enough, these are not meant to store something within the visual. So for example, if you're choosing these different units right here, or choosing, you know, last year, all date, or these kind of time periods, these settings are here only when you are using the visuals. So when you're actually consuming the report, you can change the granularity, things like that, but these settings are not saved within the visual. If you want to save something within the visual as a default value, that has to be done through the formatting options of the visual. So yeah, this covers the main things I wanted to say about the time series visual. If there's something I didn't cover, please leave a message and I'll get back to you. Yeah, we're gonna have a Q&A, that's what I meant. I'm gonna answer to them straight away. So yeah, I hope it gave you some insights on how to utilize the chart.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, there was a question, and to the rest of the attendees, this is live, so use the right side of the screen to ask questions. There's a question. Would you rather design the report over the data? And how I understand this is asked, so how much should you work on the design and the readability, and instead of getting the best input?
I get the question. A quick answer would be I definitely would much rather design the report than the data. But unfortunately, the most, I would say, you know, troublesome or time-consuming part of any report creation is data cleaning. So to make sure that the data is in the right format and how you want it, to create an additional measures, because remember when in the previous session as well, for example, Aldis mentioned that focus on what you want to achieve with the report, not on the data initially. And that's because once you understand what you actually want to achieve with this data, it's a lot easier to make sure that you're not bringing in any excess columns that are not necessary in this particular view or things like that. And also it tells you what kind of measures do you need to create. Because the amount of times where, for example, I've created a report based on, let's say, first input, where we didn't have strict guidelines of what we wanted to have, just, okay, I want to have a sales report, right? It's easy to create one. But the problems then kind of start to pile up on top of you, because the requests that you get afterwards, so, okay, but I need a KPI for, specific salesperson over 3 months of time or something like that. That's when you start to come into a lot of problems, because if you don't have those dimensions already available, adding them, creating additional measures or things like that can become really burdensome. And trust me, the amount of times we've spent all together here with the product team or the other report developers, the amount of time we spent on finalizing the formulas, making sure the interactions and everything is the same, is not even close to being half of what we spent on report designing. So I love creating the reports. It's what I would definitely do most likely, but unfortunately, data cleaning, data modeling is part of that. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, as how the speaker on Friday's session mentioned, that garbage in, garbage out. And if it's a beautiful garbage, it's still garbage. This is
Definitely.
my take. This is not for the rest of the cases. Yes, I had a question. You have all these incredible visuals, and how responsive are the data analysts to whom you are pitching these ideas to? Do you only make these things because everybody demands them? Everybody meaning the advanced users, or you create these things, and now in the bootcamp there are also, well, new people to all the systems. Would you pitch them these things as well? To, hey, you are a new guy, so here let's have all the drill down visuals.
The approach that I would definitely take is to pitch to those who are new to BI reporting as such, because trust me, breaking, kind of old habits is a lot harder than introducing something new to use. Because once you're used to the, standard interactions or standard way of reporting, and trust me, the amount of times we've seen this as well as, you create a stunning report with all these interactions, it makes sense, the users love it. But for the manager, it's just like, okay, but where are my 3 KPIs in one table that I usually get? He doesn't care about it initially. And the main problem with it is that, a lot of report creators or kind of the presenters of the idea, they're not emphasizing on the added benefits of this. So for me, for example, when I'm pitching the visuals, I'm not just pitching the customizability, because that customizability, the responsiveness, these kind of things is something that really goes for the report developers, not for the business managers, or in most cases, the decision makers. What the decision makers care about is that, once these visuals are implemented, what do we get out of it? Is it easier to sell our product? Is it easier for us to navigate through the product? And if so, how much easier is it? So one of the examples that I usually showcase is, even kind of simple variations between different visuals. Or let's say I have the same data set, I have the same experience. I'm just using, for example, one set of visuals, and then I'm using the other set of visuals. So through that, I'm trying to show to them that, we can have the same report. It looks even the same, but just by bringing these on-chart interactions into the kind of report consumption, it really allows you to lower the amount of time that you're spending trying to filter the reports and these kind of things. So, because trust me, for example, if I open up right here, I'm just going to share the screen just a second. All right, we have it live. Now, opening up this simple dashboard right here. So for example, this is something I created in the previous session as well, right? So what I have here is sales reps. I have the timeline of total sales. Actually, I'm going to adjust this one to be total sales, which actually showcasing the same thing. So total sales, total sales, total sales. And I'm going to add, for example, more drill down levels to this. So what I'm going to go for is going to be sales rep by product line. And right here on the combo visual, I'm going to choose different dimensions. So what I'm going to go for is going to be, let's say, region. And then I'm going to go for country. A little bit of lag, it's inevitable, especially when you have a presentation, right? There we go. So the kind of experience that you get with these visuals is that you only have to interact with the visuals directly. You don't have to click on any external controls, no additional buttons, nothing like that. And the way how you filter it is rather easy. So if, for example, I want to filter out, so I want to see results for Violeta Benitez. I'm only interested in vintage cars for this particular report, right? Then I want to focus on EMEA region, and I want to focus on Barcelona. So, and as you can see, I'm not clicking anything additional. I'm just interacting with the visual itself, and this really is intuitive for the end user. Sure, there is going to be a little bit of restriction in the, not really restriction, but kind of, let's say, conflicts of interest in the very beginning. That's noticeable a lot. But once you go through this experience and actually showcase them the benefits of having these interactions, 99.9% of the users transition very easy, and they're freely go with these changes. And there's this 0.1% that they just want to stick with their 10 KPIs, one donut chart, and one table at the bottom, and that's just what it is. So, you kind of have to find the right timing for it as well.
Okay. Thank you, Aivis. We don't have any more questions, and it seems like the time is up, unfortunately. Thank you very much for the session, and see you throughout the bootcamp.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.